Welcome to Cascade Church. We exist to love God, love people, and live generously. We are a church committed to being followers of Jesus and being disciples who make more disciples. We have services in person here in Monroe at 8, 9:30, and 11:15 a.m. every Sunday. Come join us. Please open your Bible as we dive into God's Word today.
I am Seth.
I'm Jordan.
And we're the Kriegers. And we've been married for 3 years.
Before we were in a life group, we had just moved to Monroe. I was pretty nervous about finding good connections with people at church. Are we going to fit in?
I'd been in a men's group, but not like this, not the same level of connection. In a lot of ways, it's totally different. A men's group of men's is great. You're talking about topics together. You're relating on a men's level, and same for women. I'm sure you're relating on the women's level. But a life group is really it's a community around you. You're we're doing this for the next number of years together. We're going to keep meeting. That is just super powerful.
We had a little baby girl 7 months ago, and she is such a big blessing in our lives. During our 20-week appointment, we found out that Ailey was really, really small. For the rest of the pregnancy, we had to go in for ultrasounds twice a week. There were a few really scary appointments. The first high-risk appointment we had, they mentioned stillbirth multiple times, but we just kept going to these appointments, and our life group and many, many other people were praying for us and praying for our baby girl. We went to the elders and got prayed for.
But having a life group was super crucial because we had appointments all different times during the day. It was some were really late, some were early, some came up out of the blue. So just having a community around you to pray for you and just to walk with you through that sort of thing is super valuable.
Our life group was encouraging us to keep focusing on Jesus and his perfect design. And after a while, we were just so focused on God and his creation instead of all these things that the doctors were saying. Honestly, it was very humbling, and just to know how covered in prayer our baby girl was, and we were, was a huge comfort.
And if we just came on Sundays and knew the same people, they would still, I'm sure, pray for us. But to have their phone numbers and know a little bit about their families and their kids, and for them to walk alongside us through that was just, yeah, it was amazing.
We were in the NICU for a month, and they were all dying to meet her. So I think walking into that first life group and having the car seat and her there and everybody being make a line, please.
And that community to just celebrate with you.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had that to the extent that we did with that.
It almost felt like the reception at your wedding, the big party to celebrate all the things that have been prayed for.
Literally, if you've ever had a big family gathering, that's what it's like every couple weeks.
Just walking in the doors, it's just a sense of belonging. Like Seth said earlier, it's like we're with our family, our extended family. It's really what it feels like.
That's really what it is.
Alkai thinks so too.
Yes. Mr. Boy. I was maybe nervous for the first 10 minutes of our first life group, and that was pretty much it. And I am kind of a hermit a little bit. Mm-hmm. So it's not as scary as people think it is.
Yeah, and if you bring a treat or a charcuterie board, people will love you.
You're an instant hero. Yes.
If you're not currently in a life group, you should be in one, and you can do so by going to cascadechurch.org.
If you have any questions, you should connect with
matt.hoffman@cascadechurch.org.
Yes.
Good morning, Cascade Community Church. So excited for you to be here and me not be here. I'm actually on the field in Mexico right now with the youth doing our Serve 2024 mission trip. So please pray for us. But I'm excited to have done this and gotten this videoed so that I can still be with you and walk through the Proverbs today. We just started the series last week, and I'm excited for our summer to be built around this understanding of these two paths that we have. And what we talked about last week, having the path of folly over here on this side. Everyone get your red highlighters, the path of folly, and who Lady Folly is and what it means to fall into the path and follow the path of folly. And that's not the way of wisdom. We want to use our green highlighters. We want to go down his way of wisdom. So as we're reading through the Proverbs this summer, I want you to have these two highlighters. I think this is an incredible thing that I am doing right now, and I'm enjoying it. As I read through, I'm highlighting in green the way of wisdom. And I'm highlighting in red, or more pink rather, the way of folly, so that as I go through, these highlighted scriptures can guide my prayer, guide my heart as we consider together, what does it mean to be in his way of wisdom? So last week we talked about that, and this week we're looking at one of the most influential things in our life that determines whether or not we will go down and stay down and arrive at a place of wisdom or a place of catastrophe and folly. Today, we're looking at this understanding that who determines where? Who determines where? Who we surround ourselves is the most influential factor in our lives that determines the destination that we will arrive at. Who determines where? Who determines where? And this is something that we know pretty naturally. It's something that we start to learn. I know for me, I learned early on in elementary school, who determines where. For me, it was most seen in recess. We had 30 minutes to break away from school, to surround ourselves with the right people and to win or lose at the game of kickball. Kickball was significant. Kickball is how we rolled in elementary school. And the very beginning, within the first 5 minutes, you knew how the next 25 minutes of recess was going to play out. Because in the first 5 minutes, we all stood in a line and two kingpins stepped out from among us and began to surround themselves with the right or wrong people. And we knew once the teams were picked, and we were standing on opposite sides of the field, we pretty much knew if your team had Ricky Bartmus with his long, powerful legs, your team was going to win. But so often being the one that was at the end of the line, and I was a short little dude, I could run fast, but I didn't have a lot of power to add to the kicking game, I often ended up with Jay Dooley on my team. And Jay Dooley and I did not bring a lot to the game of kickball. So we knew if we ended up on the same team together and Ricky Bartmus was on the other team, we knew we're going to try to have fun over the next 20, 25 minutes, but we're probably going to lose. But that other team, surrounded by the likes of Ricky Bartmus, they were going to destroy. You knew within the first 5 minutes how the rest of the time, the rest of recess was going to play out. You see that. You see that who you surround yourself will determine your final destination, winning or losing, wisdom or folly. This played out even further as I got into middle school and I got into high school, and we were told that we had to pick our partners when it came to different projects. We had a project that is due in 6 weeks, whether it was in our science class or in our social studies class. We would have these projects and we would have to pick the right team. And during those times of picking my partners on this project, I was very careful who to select to be with. And oftentimes it was not my buddies, it was not my friends, because although they were really fun to play and hang out with, and we'll get together and play Super Mario 3 after school, that's great. But here and over the next 6 weeks, I don't want you on my team because you may not be the brightest. I'm sorry, a lot of my friends were not the smartest. So I wanted to surround myself with people who were smart in science, smart in the ways of social studies. I want to make sure that the people I was connecting myself with were responsible. They wouldn't get distracted and they wouldn't put things off until the very end of the time. Like, I wanted to make sure I was on the team that was going to arrive at the destination of a good grade. As I graduated high school, got into college, and started to get into the world of the restaurant industry, that was something that I saw, that there's a lot of cooks and a lot of waiters who were there to get a paycheck to party with. And then there's another group of people within the industry that were there because they loved the food and service industry. And they were making money, but it was important to them to value food and the cooking process and to value the interaction with customers. And these two groups arrived at very different places. This one group that was just getting the paycheck to party, they didn't last very long. They got their pay and oftentimes were fired or just ended up quitting because it just wasn't their gig. But these over here, this other group of people, had a different focus. They had different values. Their character was completely different. And those were the ones that I wanted to surround myself with. And because I surrounded myself with good cooks and good people within the service industry, I grew in my ability. I was able to become an assistant manager and actually take up a higher level of working within the industry because of who I surrounded myself with, who determined the where. And this is something that we know, and as we talked about last week, wisdom is not just about knowing what's right, it's about actually applying that knowledge to life and walking in what you know, walking in wisdom. And today, what we're seeing, what we're finding is who we surround ourselves with, who we walk with is the most influential factor to whether we will go down the way of folly or whether we will go down the way of wisdom. And this proverb is the proverb that is framing the entire thing and should be framing our hearts as we go before God and ask for us to have wisdom and to walk in wisdom. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. Whoever walks with the wise grows wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. The companion of fools will suffer catastrophe, but those who walk with the wise will grow in wisdom. So we see these two different categories, not only for categories of life, but categories of people. We have foolish people and we have wise people. And we need to be selective with who surrounds us because that will determine where we go. And this group over here, the fools, if we surround ourselves with them, fools are known to value their belly. I love how the Old Testament and the New Testament, they both describe fools in this way as people who value their belly, who value their appetites. What drives them in life is their desire, their appetites, their bellies, and that will inevitably lead to catastrophe. But the wise are different. The wise don't value their bellies. The wise value values. They're able to delay gratification. They're able to focus on heart issues, character issues, and develop a foundation of wisdom that applies wisdom, lives wisdom out, so that leads to life, as Jesus would describe it, abundant life. It is out of that foundation that these wise friends live and apply factors in their life. So for us, we think about these two things, and when you frame this within the context of our spiritual lives, this becomes abundantly clear because what we find is that as believers, as Christians, so as young or new Christians, we have just died to ourselves. We have died to our appetites. We have died to following our bellies and our desires. We've died to that, and we are now trying to find a new way of living life. A new way of living life His way, according to His character, His values. So these people that we surround ourselves with are important, are crucial, because they're either going to lead us back into our old desires or they're going to lead us in the way of wisdom. So who you surround yourself with is critical. And that's why Solomon, in so many of these pages, he spends so much time not just expounding on wisdom and folly, but describing the characteristics of foolish people as well as of wise people, because we should seek to surround ourselves with the who of the wise. And that's what we're looking at today, but so often we naturally surround ourselves with the foolish. So what does that look like? Who are the foolish people? Well, one of the first things we see in Proverbs 18, 1 and 2 is this: whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. Whoever isolates himself with. So this person is not surrounding himself with anybody. He's walking alone, isolated, and in doing that, he seeks to satisfy his own belly, his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his own opinion. So what we find in this scripture is We actually do surround ourselves with fools when we isolate ourselves, because we look around and the only person that's around us is ourselves. And we often are the fool when left to ourselves. And this is so important to realize, because so many of us are living isolated lives. Pew Research has just done a study in 2024 that actually affirms the numbers that was discovered in the same study during 2018. That over 60%, I believe it was 61% of people say that having friendships is essential for living life, a good life, an abundant life. They say 61% of people value and say friends are essential in finding that good life. But they found that of these people, only 38% actually have 4 or more people that they can call their friends. And you don't have to do too much digging or researching, looking at articles or doing your own little Google search to discover that here in America, we are known for the impact of isolation. We are known right now as the isolated generation, as the depressed and anxious generation. And that is because, by and large, we are living lives by ourselves, and left to ourselves in isolation, our bellies, our desires, our flesh lead so much. And when we're just left to ourselves, we really know nothing else except to follow our own foolish ways. This isolation can destroy us and send us down the wrong path. That's not what God is created for. He didn't create us for isolation. I remember back in 1992, I began to learn how to play guitar, and I didn't know any other guitar players. I was kind of alone and isolated in my desire to play guitar. And this is 1992 in the hills of Georgia, so the inner tubes had not made it all the way up to where I lived. I didn't have Google. Google wasn't even invented. I didn't have YouTube. It wasn't even invented. If I wanted to learn how to play guitar, I had to go out and buy a book, which is this paper thing that is bound together that has all this information that I didn't understand because I was new to the guitar world. It took me months and months and months of struggling with this before I reached out to this older gentleman that knew how to play guitar. And even though he was into some weird, really folky Christian music that was not my cup of tea, he knew how to play guitar. And he began passing wisdom on to me, and I found that I needed someone to challenge me, to draw me out of isolation, to inspire me in a better way of living. I couldn't find that isolated with this fool of a guitar player. I needed someone else walking along with me. So a fool, according to Proverbs, stays isolated. But we also find this. I remember when I first found this scripture, it was one that I immediately memorized. Like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. Such a graphic proverb. As a dog returns to its vomit, this dog has eaten food that is not sitting well, it is not good or healthy for its body, so it has ejected that food, rejected that food, vomited it out, but now that dog is returning to its vomit. Such a graphic depiction of a man, a person, a fool who is returning to what his spirit has rejected. We think about all the things that we have died to in ourselves and these desires that we have to reject, we need to reject. But what this proverb is saying is, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool returns to his folly. Those things that are not good for his spiritual development, not good to become alive in Christ. The fool returns to this. And Proverbs goes on to more directly call out these different desires that have been rejected by the Spirit. Proverbs 22 in verse 10 and in verse 24 and 25, listen to what he says. Drive out a scoffer, and strife will go out, and quarreling and abuse will cease. Drive out a scoffer. Get that person out of your congregation, out of your friend circle. When you get the scoffer out, so much of life ceases. So much of foolishness ceases. All of these things will decrease as strife will go out, quarreling will go out, abuse will cease. But if you keep that scoffer in, keep that fool in your inner circle, and all of those things abound. It's not surprising that when people are complaining about all the drama in their life, it gets pointed out, well, there's a lot of drama in your life because you're surrounding yourself with dramatic people. That's got to change. Get the scoffer out. And then he more directly calls out anger. Anger, something that our spirit has rejected, is something that we desire and that we want to fill our belly with just because it makes us feel better, but the end result is death. Listen to what he says. Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. Make no friendship with him. If you've got anger issues and anger is something that you've died to in the past, the last person that you want to surround yourself with is an angry person. Because if you surround yourself with that angry person, you are going to learn his ways and ensnare yourself in anger again. So you don't do it. You can't do it. That person is a fool, and you cannot surround yourself in close proximity with that person. But I don't think Solomon would be at all upset if you took out anger and inserted whatever it is that you have died to in the past, that you are prone to, sensitive to. Insert that into this Proverbs. Don't surround yourself with a man of anger. Don't surround yourself with a man of pride. Don't surround yourself with a man of gossiping, a man of lust, a man of drunkenness, a man of fill in the blank. If that person is a person who is known to be given to any of these things, Solomon cries out, don't surround yourself with that person. That's foolish. It's going to lead you back down the path of your desire, back down a path that leads to death and catastrophe. Solomon goes on to say in Proverbs 4:14 through 16, do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it. Do not go down it. Turn away from it. Pass it on. For they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. As we're wrapping up this section of looking at what it means to walk with a fool, Solomon says, don't do it. Don't take the first step with a fool. Stay away from it, because there is a progression when you get a little closer to a foolish person, and that begins to awaken things inside of you that sends you down this slow, inevitable progression towards death. So don't even start the journey being kin to someone that is foolish like that. I remember me and my kids especially, I'm not big into watching YouTube, but they had this one show that they would watch on YouTube, and I just called it a show, which definitely dates me, okay? But there was this show that they would watch on YouTube, led by these two men that lived in North Carolina. I don't want to name names, but they were known to be Christians, even though their show was not necessarily about Jesus or the church or anything, but they were known to have good values, and they led this show that was incredible and funny to watch. But they moved to the other side of America. They went to California, and they were suddenly surrounded by new people and began to walk closely with people who didn't necessarily share their Christian values. And they've recently, over the past several years, come out and made this statement and kind of talked about this journey that they began surrounding themselves with people who did not share their same values, and they started to identify and enjoy some of these values. And it wasn't long before they started to question a lot of the things, and these people's lives and these people's values started to define and lead them down a different path until years later a progression took place in their life where they all together walked away from Jesus, denied him completely. And you can listen to this heartbreaking account of how they've just decided, we've been living in this new place, surrounded by new people, and we just have a new way of living life now that has nothing to do with the life we came from. There's a progression that will happen if you surround yourself with foolish people. Now, I want to make this clear as we look at this, that fools value the belly, and fools will lead you to catastrophe. Now, what Solomon is saying here is a biblical principle that goes throughout all of our life, that those we choose to surround ourselves the closest with, those in most close and influential proximity to our life, should not be fools. That doesn't mean that you can avoid fools altogether. I'm sure you're going to go to work tomorrow and you're going to be surrounded by a lot of fools. You can't go to your boss and name the fools out, ask for them to be fired so that you can not surround yourself with fools. That's not what Solomon is saying. You're going to have fools all around you. You're going to have people that satisfy their own desires. They're going to be around you. They're going to be in your families, at your workplace, wherever your place of hobbies are. They're going to be there. And Solomon isn't saying just walk on the other end of the sidewalk. You know, Jesus made friends with sinners, but he didn't make them his closest friends. And that's what Solomon is saying here. It's not that you can avoid them at all cost. It's impossible. But you have a choice. Who determines where, but you determine who. You determine those who are the closest to you in proximity, those who are most influential in your life. You get to determine who is in your closest circle. And that is what Solomon is saying here. And this is something, students, I know you're usually sitting like right around here during second service. Tune in, listen to this. Who you surround yourself with is critical. Your closest friends will determine where you go in life and the trajectory that your life goes on. Young adults usually sit somewhere right over here. Salt age people, second service, third service, you're usually over here. This is so crucial for you too. As you are stepping into life and growing in life and seeing where you're going to go, this matters. Who you surround yourself with, who you pull into your closest friendships will determine where you go in life. In men's and women's ministry, I just want to go and say the same thing. It's important. These ministries exist not just to feed into you, but to introduce you to a people that you can look to. So for all of you, I want you to hear Paul's words from Philippians chapter 3, where he calls out the dogs. Stay away from these dogs that seek to satisfy their bellies. But instead, in chapter 3, he admonishes the church. Join in imitating me as I imitate Christ. And he says to observe those who walk according to the pattern that we give you. Scope out is the word. Scope out, search. I want your radar to go off as you search the church and you look around. You want to find the most Christ-like people that are there and say, hey, you are the ones that I want to surround myself with. So when you're in middle school, high school, young adults, and all of the times, our small groups exist. Our hope groups exist. The classes exist. Youth group, SALT, men's and women's Bible studies. All of these areas exist to show you community that you can scope out and determine, okay, who are the wisest people I can find in this group? Those are the people I want to surround myself with, befriend, and allow to be influential so that I can walk in the way of wisdom. This is something that my wife and I have done for years. We wanted to make sure that we looked for people who were just 5 steps ahead of us in life, that were succeeding in life, having incredible kids, incredible families, and living their life out in a Christ-like way. And we decided we want to surround ourselves with them. And we've always been searching for those wise people. So wise people value values. They value the characteristics of Jesus, of biblical values, and those are the ones that you want surrounding yourself with. So I don't have time to go into all 915 verses of Proverbs, which expounds on every single character trait you can think of. I just want to talk about 4 that can be amazing influences and character traits in the lives of wise friends that you surround yourself with. So the first one, Proverbs 11:13. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. This verse describes that you've got people that just can't hold on to secrets and they're just going to blab to the world and tell everybody everything. You probably don't want to surround yourself with those people. You want to walk with people who are more guarded, people who understand how to keep things kind of tight in relationship to your heart and what you have been sharing with them. A trustworthy person in spirit keeps a thing covered. Proverbs 16:28 says this, a dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends. Okay, so when you're in one of these areas, and I remember in high school being, kind of friends with some people, and I enjoyed being with them because I knew the ins and outs of everybody else's life. That's great. Yeah, give me all the gossip, give me all the dirt. But it wasn't long before I realized they were probably sharing my dirt with everyone else too. College, adulthood, that never changes. If you're sitting in a class and you sit down in one of our small groups and the person immediately starts dumping out everybody else's history, that's probably not what you're looking for in someone to surround yourself with. Being guarded doesn't mean that you keep things so secretive that, you don't tell the cops when you know a bank is about to get robbed. It's not that you're okay with your friend's sin. It's just that you're okay and you're a safe place for that friend to sit down with you. And for me, like my closest circle, I sit around the campfire and enjoy the holy smoke that comes out of the campfire, because around the campfire, I'm able to bare my soul with my friend who's on the other side of that fire. And it's in those moments that I, even as a pastor, I can be vulnerable with the things that I'm struggling with. I can be vulnerable with my pain, my hurt, and even the things that I'm struggling in my own life when it comes to failure. There are times that I struggle with hopelessness, with depression, with anger, with pride. And I need a circle of people that I can sit with around a campfire and vulnerably share those things so that I'm not isolated, keeping those things to myself, inevitably walking down a road of catastrophe. But people that I can share myself with, that can sit on the other end of the fire, and I know they're going to be guarded with this information. They're not going to go straight to Facebook and say, hey, this is what your pastor's struggling with this week. I don't need that. I need someone that I can sit with and trust that they will hear my heart and that I can be vulnerable and open. I need someone who will be guarded with my heart so that I'm not isolated, and so that I can work through and process the things that are going on in my heart. And we need that kind of wise friend that is guarded. And that leads right into a different characteristic. You need to walk with truth tellers. And this is why, there's a point. You don't just sit and listen, you work through. A truth teller is a good counselor, someone who's willing to work through and to guide you through your struggles to the truth. Someone who loves you where you are, but loves you too much to leave you there. Listen to what Solomon says in Proverbs 27. He says, better is an open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. And then later in Proverbs 14 or earlier, he says this, leave the presence of a fool, for there you do not meet words of knowledge. The wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way, but the folly of fools is deceiving. So you need a wise friend who's not only going to be guarded and safe for you to open up, but you need a friend who's both guarded and a good counselor, a good truth teller, who's able to work through and process through those things, loves you where you are, but leads you to a place of wisdom, helps you understand how to walk through those things to where you need to get in life. Now, this is so valuable to find a friend who's willing to hold this in balance and do this for you. We all need someone. And I agree that we need people who accepts us where we are, but I want someone who's not going to leave me there, who's going to walk with me to a better place. So I've kind of said this before, and I'm going to share this again, but I suffer from something that's called anosmia, which is the inability to smell. I can't smell very well. Those things, my brain does not fire. It's never worked like that. I can't smell, and we discovered this when I was going through puberty, when I was in middle school. My mom kept leaning in and saying, Michael, you smell awful. Are you not bathing? Are you not using deodorant? I'm like, I'm fine. I don't smell at all. I couldn't smell my own stench. And my mom was the first to help me discover that, and she was kind enough to tell me that. She loved me where I was, but loved me too much to leave me in my own stank. She walked me out of that and helped me understand this thing about me. When I was on a mission trip early in my ministry, we were in New Orleans. And we got done with this incredibly difficult day of working in 105-degree weather, humidity. None of us were smelling good. We came back to the missions base. We all bathed up. When we came together for a worship session, I sat down next to my wife. My wife leaned in and she said, Michael, you stink. Did you not take a bath? I was like, no, I just got out of the shower, got dressed. I thought she was playing a joke on me. She was like, no, bro, you stink. Love you, but you stink. So I had to leave and go put on another shirt and come back downstairs, wash up again. I came back downstairs into the meeting room, sat down again, and then the person on the other side of me leaned in and was like, Michael, you're smelling, bro. You still stink. And I thought this was just a big gag. I thought they were all playing off of my insomnia, but as it turns out, I still stunk. And thankfully, they loved me where I was. They accepted me, but they loved me too much to leave me in my stench. And what we discovered is that at the beginning of the trip, one of the other students inadvertently spilt a whole glass of milk in my luggage. And in the 105-degree weather, that milk had soured every piece of clothing that I had, so it had nothing to do with me bathing and everything to do with the fact that I was wearing stanky clothes. And my friends loved me where I was at, but they loved me too much to leave me there. They walked with me and they helped me understand what was going on, and they walked with me to the laundromat as we gathered coins together to clean every article of clothing that had been soured with milk from that student that I locked up in his own room for not telling me this, right? He didn't love me enough to tell me what he did, but my other friends, they did. We took care of it and I got to a good place. But that is such a key characteristic. We need friends that are guarded. They love us where we're at, and our fears, our failures, our struggles, they're okay with that, but they love us too much to leave us there. They want to be wise counselors that walk us through life. And another character trait of that same kind of a friend is walking with a friend who is loyal. They're guarded, they're truth tellers, and they're loyal. They're going to be with us through the thick and thin, not just for a season, but they are going to walk with us through every season. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. This describes a person who is in it. They are ride or die. They will be with you through all the seasons, and that's what we need from a friend who is guarded and a truth teller and loyal, to walk with us in the good times and to walk with us in the hard times. My wife just got off the phone last Thursday with her friend, Kathy Pittman. And it just dawned on me as I was talking about this in my head and writing this sermon that she has been talking with this woman for over 15 years. Someone that she met in our church in Georgia. And my wife saw her and listened to her speak and said, that is the woman, that is the wife, that is the mother that I want to be. And she began a relationship with Kathy Pittman, and for 15 years, she has talked to Kathy on the phone or in person or on FaceTime. They have connected consistently for over 15 years. That's the kind of a friendship that I want, that I have in some other people that are willing to be with us through every season of life. When we have jobs, when we lose jobs, when our health is good, and when we are in health crisis. When we're happy, when we are a depressive mess. In those times when we are sunk into the darkness of life, that's when a lot of people are just like, all right, I'm done. I can't listen to this any longer. Kind of tired of listening to you gripe and complain. And they're not going to be loyal through those hard times. But Kathy Pittman and so many other people in our lives have been with us, even in those moments. They were loyal people that stuck closer than family ever could. That is the kind of a friend that we need, that are loyal, that will be with us, because that changes where we go in life. Abraham Lincoln had a friend like that. His name was Joshua Speed. And early on in Abraham Lincoln's life, he got to be a bit of a mess. He was struggling relationally. He had a romantic relationship that went sideways. He was struggling politically. He had made some missteps, and he didn't know if he could recover from these things. And Abraham Lincoln sunk into a deep depression that you can read about in his journals. He was suicidal. But his friend, Joshua Speed, stuck with him through those times. Didn't get sick of him, didn't get tired of listening to him cry and moan and just vent. He stuck with him. He walked through the house and collected all the knives and scissors and dangerous objects, got them out of Abraham's life, and he stepped into Abraham's life and walked with him loyally through that time. And the nation and history has been better for it, because who Abraham surrounded himself with determined where he went in life. And he had a guarded, counseling, loyal friend. We need that in the people that we surround ourselves with. This last character trait, as we start bringing this all together, we need to walk with someone who's guarded. We need to walk with someone who is a truth teller. We need to walk with someone who is loyal, and we need to walk ultimately with Jesus and Jesus followers. Proverbs 18:24 says this: a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And Jesus is that friend that sticks closer than a brother. And I love Jesus' words in John 15 when he's talking to his disciples as they're sitting around him for one of the last moments of Jesus' life. And he looks at them and he says this: I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last. Jesus intentionally chose his disciples. You read about how Jesus fasted overnight and he prayed deeply about who he was going to surround himself with. And then Jesus stepped into a crowd of hundreds of people and said, I choose you 12. I choose you. You are the ones that I want to intentionally surround me with. And Jesus did that with much prayer, much fasting, and much consideration. He chose the people that he surrounded himself with, and then he modeled what a good friendship was to look like. He passed on everything that God had given to Jesus, and Jesus turned around and gave everything to the disciples and poured himself into the disciples. So as the disciples left, they went to make disciples. They went to help other people walk in the ways of Jesus. So the people we surround ourselves with, yes, we want them to be guarded. We want them to be truth tellers. We want them to be loyal. But ultimately, the one character trait that we want more than anything else is that we want them to look like Jesus. High schoolers, look up here. Those that you surround yourself with, those that you give the most influence in your life, need to be Jesus followers. Salt, young adults, men, women, all of us, when we consider the people that we are surrounding ourselves with, those who are dating within our congregation, we have so many people that have just recently gotten married and they're starting a new life together, and we still have a whole crew of people that are still searching for that person they're going to live the rest of their life with. I can't emphasize this anymore. That person that you're inviting into your life, that you are going to date and that you are soon going to be married to, needs to look like Jesus. That is the characteristic that we need in our wise friends that are surrounding ourselves with. We are on a path in life to become more like Jesus. So we want to surround ourselves with the people who look most like Jesus. That is the character trait that you need above all else. And Jesus demonstrated all 915 Proverbs and showed us what it looks like to live the gospel out, to live wisdom out. And we model everything in our life after the man who gave his life for us. So as we wrap this up and as we consider Proverbs 13:20, the wise walk with the wise, but the companion of fools suffer harm. I want to encourage you to be highlighting these scriptures that we've gone over, as well as the scriptures that you're reading in this portion of Proverbs for this week, and highlighting those green areas. And as you consider what we talked about today, first for yourself, are you a friend that exhibits the character traits of the wise? And are you surrounding yourself with people who are going to help you on this path to life in the way of his wisdom? Are you surrounding yourself with, and are you a wise friend? And what are the traits that you need to pray more out of your life? And the traits that you don't want to surround yourself with. Right now, as we go before God, as I invite the ushers to come forward, I want to pray over this for us. I want us to read the word, I want us to pray the word, and I want us to be changed by the word so that his word can guide us in his way of wisdom. Jesus, you are the friend that sticks closer than a brother. You have loved us where we are, and you are the ultimate truth teller that compels us to change and to be transformed, to be renewed, and to head down this path to wisdom. Jesus, I pray that as we read your words, as we read your word in the book of Proverbs, that we will be drawn to what is highlighted in green. And Jesus, we will follow that way. And Jesus, as we prayerfully consider all that is written and read, the way of a fool and what we don't want to surround ourselves with, can we honestly evaluate those who are closest to us? Jesus, we may need to be open to surrounding ourselves with other people. So will you be with us as you guide us to be wise friends, but also to surround ourselves with wise people of great influence. Please take this offering and bless it to your ministry, and please be with our lives as we live life in your way of wisdom. Thank you for your word. May we walk in it and walk surrounded well. In your name we pray. Amen. We'll see you next week.